Also, somebody has a question in regards to what's the difference between a Sephardim and Ashkenazim. Is it the same Torah? As far as the Torah itself, the 5 books of Moses and the 19 other books that we have, which is total of 24 books of the written Torah, and the entire oral Torah, which is the Mishnah, the Gemara, the Shulchan Aruch, all of that is exactly the same. All of that is exactly the same. The only difference between Sephardim and Ashkenazim, Sephardim lived in the Middle East, the Ashkenazim lived in the countries of Europe and so on. And Ashkenazim have different customs than the customs of the Sephardim. That's the only difference. There's no different Torah. They both believe in the same Moshe Rabbeinu. They both believe that they're descendants of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. They both believe that the Mashiach is going to come. They both believe that you have to eat kosher and you have to keep Shabbat. They both have the same overall beliefs. It's just the way they practice certain things, certain customs are different because they lived in different parts of the world. What is it like? If you lived, let's say, for example, in the Middle East, most likely you acted a different way as far as how most of Am Yisrael was poor in the Middle East. So they had different types of foods. So for example, the Middle Eastern Jews, a lot of their food is dough, based on dough. Jachnun, malawach, all of these different foods you see, they're all based on dough. Why dough? It's the cheapest food you can possibly find, that you can make in a desert, that could fill you up. Now, the Ashkenazim, on the other hand, have different types of foods. More fish-based and things of that nature, gefilte fish. Now, if you give a typical Sephardi gefilte fish, they're probably going to tell you, no thank you. They're probably going to tell you, no thank you. Why? Because different traditions, different customs. Same thing goes when it comes to the experiences they lived in. For example, the reason why this Ashkenazim do not eat rice on Pesach is not because it's chametz. Rice is not chametz. But they don't eat it because their custom is not to eat it, because their poverty a few hundred years ago was to such an extent, the Ashkenazim's poverty was so high to such an extent that they would literally reuse the same sacks that they use for wheat. They would reuse it, recycle it, use it for rice. So they knew that the grains of the wheat are so small that even though you've emptied it out, there's always going to be a few grains. So when you fill it up with rice, there's probably going to be some wheat in there. So the problem is they couldn't rely on themselves that the rice that they made didn't have wheat in there. So they made a rule that, listen, since we're all using the same sacks over and over again, and we can't know that for sure we removed all of the wheat from it, we're not allowed to eat rice. The Sephardim did not have that problem. They didn't have that problem. They had different problems, but not the same problem. So it became a custom that they adapted in order to protect their neshamot from eating non-kosher on Pesach. And the reason why is because if you eat non-kosher on Pesach, you eat chametz on Pesach, it's din karet, it's death penalty. So they preferred not to eat chametz on Pesach rather than get a heavenly death penalty. That's how righteous they were. So this is their righteousness. But now, years passed, 400 years have passed, we don't have that problem anymore. Aside from the fact that we're rich people now, aside from that, usually the factories that make rice don't have anything to do with wheat. And even if they do, they don't reuse the same sack. So how come the Ashkenazim still don't eat the rice on Pesach? Because once something becomes a serious minhag, over a few hundred years, it becomes part of the Masoret. It becomes part of the lineage, the history of the nation. You're not allowed to remove it. And the reason why is because if you remove this minhag today, most likely you'll remove a different minhag tomorrow, and it's only a matter of time before you start removing things that are not minhagim, but actually halachot. Like you'll actually start removing the laws. And that's where it becomes dangerous, because people don't really understand the difference between minhag and halacha. They think it's halacha to become drunk where you can't even walk on Purim. It's not halacha. You don't have to do it. You can, and maybe even should, but you don't have to do it. You can get drunk, but don't make a fool of yourself in the middle of the street. There's certain minhagim, customs that we can do, and so on and so forth. Point being, Rabotai, is that there's a very, very big difference between minhag and halacha. If you violate the minhag, you're not going to Gehinnom. But if you violate halacha, unless you do tshuva, you have a very serious problem.